What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael and welcome to FudgeMuppet. Today we're taking a look at all the restoration perks in Skyrim and talking about which perks are worth picking up for your character and which perks you should definitely give a miss. Now obviously this depends on your character and what kind of build you're making, and I will take this into account as I go through all the perks. So firstly we have Novice Restoration. It's a given for any character using Restoration, you just need it. Each perk in this tree branch reduces the casting cost of the respective spells by 50%. It goes all the way from Novice to Apprentice and up to Master. Basically, all you need to consider here is what kind of spells you want to use. The thing with Restoration is that this perk line doesn't branch off into other perks. For example, in Alteration, if you want the Stability perk, then you need to get the Adept Alteration perk. However, in Restoration, all the other perks just branch off from Novice Restoration. Due to this, you pretty much only need to go up the main Mastery line until you reach the level of Mastery that correlates to the spells you want to use. So if you're planning to use a character that only uses an Apprentice Restoration spell, you're not going to want to go up to Adept and beyond. However, most characters focusing on Restoration will go beyond, but I'm going to recommend that a lot of these characters actually do stop at Adept, and here's why. The perk called Regeneration allows you to heal 50% more with healing spells, and you only need 20 Restoration to get it. This means you can get it almost straight away, and then once you've acquired the Adept healing spell known as Close Wounds, it's going to heal a massive 150 points of health, and you can just quickly cast this with both hands if you like to get 300 points of health really fast, for the low cost of 63 magicka per cast if you have the Adept Restoration perk. By the way, the Regeneration perk is worth it for any character who's going to be using healing. Using Close Wounds works perfectly as your endgame healing spell, especially considering mages often have lower health anyway. Even for a warrior though, there's not a lot of situations where you need to use the grand healing spell for all the extra healing and the higher casting cost. Unless of course you have companions with you that you also want to heal with grand healing, in which case you'll want to get the expert level perk. You have to determine whether this perk line is worth it based on what kind of character you're playing. You only need to go to expert really if you want grand healing, or if you want to use some of the most powerful turn undead spells like Circle of Protection, which is good for builds like our Paladin, which we remastered and released yesterday. That said, for most characters you'll be fine with the Stendarr's Aura spell, which damages undead who get too close. This spell again is only Adept. In terms of Restoration Master spells, it's really up to you. We don't think they're that great as they take heaps long to cast, so we just don't think the Master Restoration perk is worth it. The spells also aren't the most necessary things, but obviously if you're role-playing a character who would be considered one of the best Restoration mages in all of Tamriel, then it's probably worth it for you. From a combat perspective, however, just go up to Adept if your main focus is healing and killing undead, and then venture into Expert if you want powerful turn undead spells and grand healing to heal yourself and a companion. Personally, however, we like killing undead more than we like making them flee, so we would be using sun damage spells like Vampire's Bane and Sunfire alongside Stendarr's Aura and Close Wounds before going into expert level territory and potentially wasting perks. The best ward spell is also only Adept, so you're covered with that too. Not that wards are the most great thing. So there is a perk in the Restoration tree called Ward Absorb. Ward Absorb gives you 25% spell absorption when you use wards, but is it worth it? Well, sadly, it actually doesn't work like normal spell absorption, so I can't actually say it gives you 25% spell absorption, because normal spell absorption gives you a chance to absorb all the magic from a spell cast at you, and you also take no damage as a result. This perk, however, actually makes you absorb 25% of all incoming spells into your magicka, so it's not based on chance, and the problem with this is that enemies don't often use super high casting cost spells, and if they do, you'll only absorb a quarter of the cost. The other thing is, wards actually drain your own magicka super fast and are arguably not even a spell that's worth using. The only exception to this is if you reduced your restoration cost through enchanting, and you could cast wards very sustainably as a result. However, if this is the case, you have no need to absorb 25% of the cost to give you more magicka. I'd give this perk a miss, honestly, unless you really want to make a super spell absorption build for role-playing purposes or something. So we talked about the Regeneration perk to heal 50% more with healing spells, and after this we find one of the most unique perks in Skyrim, Necromage. Necromage is a perk that gives you a 25% strength increase and a 50% duration increase to all spells cast against undead. This will make you a beast at killing undead, but to be honest, you don't even need it for that reason. You can really be effective at killing undead without this perk, but if you want overkill, then go for it. However, the real candidate that this perk is worth it for is actually a vampire. If you choose to become a vampire in Skyrim or become one by accident, you will actually be affected by the Necromage perk. What this does is actually increase the potency of many of your own spells, enchantments, and dragon shouts. This will make you a much more powerful character as you are undead. However, keep in mind that it amplifies all effects, which includes negative ones such as weakness to fire. Some perks are also affected if chosen after you get the Necromage perk. You get the idea. If you have a vampire build with a neat setup, you'll be able to beef it up significantly by getting this perk. The more power you have as a vampire, the better, so it's worth it for vampires. Now let's look at the dual casting perk. This perk is absolutely not worth it unless you're playing a character who plans on using things like high level turn undead spells. Dual casting allows you to overcharge your spells to make a more powerful version, but you just don't need it for healing spells. It's best used for characters like our paladin build who are going to be using spells like Circle of Protection to make higher level undead enemies flee, and also if you wanted to use Stendarr's Aura, which this build also uses. The point is, unless you're going to play a build which is super dedicated to restoration and will specifically be using powerful spells related to the undead, you don't need it. So if you're a powerful warrior who wants to use healing spells, or if you're just a mage who's focusing on other schools but likes the healing aspect of restoration, give the dual casting perk a miss. Not worth it. For healers, there's also the Respite perk. This perk is also not worth getting if you're a pure mage, but if you're a warrior or an archer who uses healing spells, then this perk can be fantastic. What it does is restore stamina as well as health. This helps warriors as you can boost up your stamina and health so you can power attack more and more and more, and for archers it gives you more stamina for slowing time and zooming in with your bow, obviously again all while healing you. The reason this isn't worth it for a pure mage is because you don't use stamina as you don't have any weaponry, but that said, if you like to have companions and you want a warrior as a companion, you could actually use healing spells on them, which will also improve their stamina and let them power attack more. So in summary, this perk is relatively good. It's just not needed for every character, especially pure mages. Then we've got one final branch, the line with recovery and avoid death. Recovery has 2 ranks, and each one adds 25% Magicka Regeneration. This gives you 50% Magicka Regen, and this is actually very average. Personally, I think it's nice that it counters the drawback of the Atronach Stone exactly, but it's really nothing special at all, and both ranks aren't overly worth it. You can do much better using robes and enchantments, and 50% sounds like a lot, but surprisingly, it's not very much. However, if you do want to acquire the Avoid Death perk, you will need to get at least 1 rank of recovery so you can reach it. Avoid Death heals you 250 points automatically if your health falls below 10%. It only works once a day though, because otherwise it would be overpowered. This perk can be very handy when it comes to some seriously threatening situations, and I often like to get it for a build that has one of the 9 divines watching over them in the role-playing sense. However, the problem with this perk is that you're a restoration-based character. Your health shouldn't be getting below 10% anyway because you have good healing capabilities. Also, often your health can be 13% and then you get one-shotted by a high damage attack, which doesn't allow time for the Avoid Death perk to activate. Therefore, if you think about it, the perk's pretty average. I'd only recommend it for characters who are A, playing very aggressively and have a high-risk, high-reward combat style, or as I said, B, those who want to feel like they're being helped by the gods. Subscribe to FudgeMuppet for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching all this way. I really appreciate it, and I really hope you found it useful. Social media links are in the description. My name is Michael, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.